You don't have a willpower problem. You have a design problem. And the fact that you failed at the same goal 3, 4, maybe 10 times, that's not a character flaw. That's actually proof the system was broken, not you. Every time you relied on willpower alone, you were trying to run a marathon on a single cup of coffee, and your brain was designed to stop you. Think about the last time you genuinely wanted to change something about your life. Maybe it was going to the gym, cutting back on your phone, eating better, waking up earlier. You started strong. The first few days felt easy, even exciting. Then, around day 4 or 5, something shifted. The motivation faded. The friction felt heavier. And one missed day became 2 and a week. Then you quietly stopped. Sound familiar? Here's what nobody told you. That collapse wasn't weakness. It was biology. Willpower is not a personality trait. It's a biological process, and it's governed by a single exhaustible region of your brain. That region is called the prefrontal cortex, and every decision, every moment of self-control, every time you resist temptation, it draws from the same limited neurological fuel tank. And unlike your muscles, you can't feel it depleting until it's already gone. Here's the experiment that changed everything. In 1998, psychologist Roy Baumeister ran a study where participants sat in a room with 2 things: a bowl of freshly baked chocolate chip cookies and a bowl of radishes. One group could only eat the radishes. The other could eat the cookies freely. Then both groups were given an unsolvable puzzle to work on. The radish group gave up nearly twice as fast. They weren't weaker people. They were depleted people. Baumeister called this ego depletion, the idea that self-control draws from a finite cognitive resource. Later research complicated the picture. Some studies suggested the mechanism is partly psychological, shaped by belief. But the core finding held across dozens of replications. Acts of self-control do interfere with subsequent self-control. Your willpower has a budget, and most of us are spending it by 10 a.m. Here's where it gets more specific and more useful. Your prefrontal cortex is heavily dependent on glucose. A 2007 study by Galiot and Baumeister found that blood glucose dropped measurably after tasks requiring self-control, and that restoring glucose partially restored self-control performance. What does that mean in real life? The decisions you make late in the day, when you're hungry and drained, are coming from a biologically compromised brain. At judge who gives harsher sentences before lunch, that study is real. Israeli researchers analyzed over 1,000 parole hearings and found approval rates dropped from roughly 65% at the start of the day to nearly 0 just before a break, then reset after food. Their cognitive resources were gone. They were making life-altering decisions on empty. And if it happens to judges, it's happening to you every single day. Now, think about the standard advice you've been given. Just be more disciplined. Push through it. You need to want it badly enough. Every single one of those instructions assumes willpower is unlimited, that you can just manufacture more of it through desire or guilt. But you now know that's biologically false. Telling someone to use more willpower is like telling someone to run faster on a broken leg. The advice isn't just unhelpful, it's actively harmful. Because every time you fail, you don't just lose a habit, you lose a piece of your self-belief. The compounding effect of repeated failure at something you genuinely care about creates a story. I'm someone who can't follow through. That story becomes a self-fulfilling identity. And that is the real damage willpower culture does to people. You're halfway through, and if you didn't know that, you definitely don't know what's coming next. Because we're about to get to the part that actually fixes it. If willpower is the wrong tool entirely, and it is, what's the right one? Stay with me. The most effective behavior change researchers in the world stopped focusing on motivation decades ago. What they found instead will change how you design your entire day. The most effective behavior change researchers in the world stopped focusing on motivation decades ago. B.J. Fogg at Stanford, James Clear in his research synthesis, Wendy Wood at USC, they all converged on the same uncomfortable truth. Lasting behavior change almost never comes from trying harder. It comes from designing your environment so the desired behavior requires 0 willpower at all. Wendy Wood spent 30 years studying habits. Her conclusion? About 43% of our daily behaviors aren't decisions at all. They're automatic responses to environmental cues. You don't decide to check your phone, you see it. You don't decide to eat the chips, they're on the counter. Behavior follows context, almost every time, and almost without awareness. Your environment is making decisions for you, right now. This is the mechanism. Your brain is constantly scanning for contextual cues that predict what action comes next. When a cue is present, say the phone on your desk, or the running shoes tucked away in your closet, it triggers a habit loop before conscious thought even engages. The prefrontal cortex barely gets involved, which means if you change the cue, you change the behavior, all without spending a single unit of willpower. This is called friction engineering, and it works in both directions. You increase friction on the behaviors you want to stop. Put the phone in another room, don't buy the junk food, log out of the app. And you decrease friction on the behaviors you want to start. Lay out your gym clothes the night before, put the book on your pillow, keep the fruit at eye level in the fridge. By adjusting the ease or difficulty of certain actions, you're essentially engineering your environment to support your goals. Stanford researchers found that people who placed healthy food at eye level in their fridge consumed 2.7 times more of it than people who stored it in a drawer. Same food, same person, different cue placement, wildly different behavior. No willpower required. The architecture of your environment is either working for you or against you at every moment. Most people have never once audited it. Think about your own environment right now. Where is your phone when you're trying to work? Where do you keep the food you shouldn't eat? But what's the first thing your eyes land on when you walk through your front door? Every one of those placements is a cue delivering instructions to your brain. And you probably set those cues up without a single conscious thought, which means you can redesign them the same way. But here's the deepest layer, the one that makes all of this stick long-term: identity. BJ Fogg found that the people who sustained behavior change weren't the ones who tried hardest. They were the ones who changed how they described themselves. Not, I'm trying to run, but I'm a runner. Not, I'm cutting back on sugar, but I'm someone who eats well. The language shift is the behavior shift. This isn't motivational poster fluff. There's a real mechanism. When a behavior becomes part of your self-concept, your brain treats deviation from it as a threat to identity, and the motivational system activates to protect it. You stop needing willpower because the behavior is now self-consistent, not self-overriding. Psychologists call this identity-based motivation, and it's the difference between short-term compliance and permanent change. So here's the real reason willpower always fails you. It was never designed to carry the load you've been giving it. It's a short-term adjust system, useful for emergencies, terrible for daily habits. Every time you tried to change through willpower alone, you were using a flashlight to light a stadium. The fix isn't discipline, it's design. Change your environment, change your cues, change your identity, and willpower becomes irrelevant. Audit one habit you've been struggling with this week. Just one. Ask yourself, what environmental cue is making the bad behavior easy? Add friction there. Then, what single environment change makes the good behavior the path of least resistance? Remove friction there. You don't need more willpower. You need a smarter environment. What's the one habit that's defeated you most? And what cue or friction shift are you going to try? Tell me below. I read every one.